Hello and welcome back to the Frontington and Backwoods Railway. In my last video I introduced you to my brand new shed, which will be the new home for my layout. It's brand spanking new, as sparkly clean as a rough wooden shed can get, and it's nowhere near ready to have a railway in it. So in this video I'll show you what I've been doing to make it more train friendly. I'm working from the outside in, so the first thing I needed to do was give the shed a coat of paint. And I picked out this lovely light green shade of Cuprinol Ducksback. Once dry, it repels water, hence the phrase, like water off a ducksback painted shed. It needed 2 coats, and for my 15 by 10 foot shed, that meant 1 and a bit cans of paint, so I've got plenty left over. Getting in all the cracks was tricky, but without taking the shed apart again, there wasn't really much alternative. Is it perfect? No. Is it good enough? Yeah, probably. I also added some door furniture, some hooks to hold the doors open, and a Suffolk latch so I can open and close the door from the inside. Next, I needed to install some ventilation. So after marking out where it needed to go, I drilled a hole big enough for my jigsaw blade, and then cut out a suitably sized rectangle. To fit the vent itself, I first applied a bead of silicone to seal around the edges, and then screwed the vent in place over the top. And then I repeated the process for the other end of the shed too. The final addition to the outside was some guttering. Since there isn't a lot of space above the door, that had to be the highest point, so it all flows downhill from there, around the back down the other side, all the way round to almost where it began, down this downpipe, into a pre-existing pipe built into the floor, which empties into this drain, which takes the water somewhere, I hope. With the outside complete, let's talk about the inside, for which I present you with this diagram. That's the wooden wall of the shed. The walls need to perform a few different functions. Firstly, they need to hold the roof up, because the roof would look silly hanging there on its own. The second requirement is to keep the weather out. And the third and final component is to manage heat. Since the roof is already sitting pretty, let's move on to that second component. Keeping out the weather primarily means 2 things in the UK: wind and rain. Now, if you've got a well-made shed, this probably won't be a problem. Mine sadly had lots of gaps and holes. The weather-resistant paint will help, but gaping holes are still a problem. Now, some of the knot holes I filled with wood filler, some of the larger gaps I filled with silicone, and other gaps I filled with expanding foam. The end result is, hopefully, a much more effective barrier against the weather. Is it perfect? No. Is it good enough? Well, I hope so. The next step then is a breathable membrane. This is often used in house roofs, underneath the tiles, as a protective barrier, just in case any water manages to squeeze through. In my shed, it'll be doing the same thing. If water gets past the wood, it'll be stopped by this membrane. Now, you could use something completely waterproof, but then you'd have the problem of where that water goes once it's been stopped. You don't want it collecting in the wall and causing mildew and such like. That's why I'm using a vapour membrane. It stops drops of water, but allows water vapour to escape, so that when it evaporates it has somewhere to go. And that's also why ventilation is needed, so that the water vapour doesn't collect inside the shed. So I used a staple gun to fix the membrane to the shed wall. Is it perfect? No. Is it good enough? Time will tell. The next layer is about heat management. I'm installing this shed during the summer, and it's really obvious how much heat is trying to get in. This is where insulation comes in. I'm using this multifoil insulation. The foil reflects heat back the way it came, so it can't get in the first place. And in the winter, it'll keep the heat in. There's also a layer of what's effectively bubble wrap in the middle. This works in a similar way to double glazing, in that it creates an air gap to help stop heat transfer. Again, I attached it to the shed walls using a staple gun, keeping a small gap between the foil and the membrane. And if I put my hand between them, I can already feel the difference it's making. It's also important not to seal it all completely, as the vapour coming through the membrane needs to go somewhere, so there are some ventilation gaps here and there. I couldn't install all of this in one go, unfortunately, as I miscalculated how much insulation I needed, and had to wait for another roll to be delivered. But once complete, it looked like the inside of a spaceship. But it should be more effective at maintaining its temperature. Is it perfect? No. Is it good enough? I'm gonna say yes. To remedy the Hall of Mirrors effect, I then put some plywood sheets over the top. And this provides yet another layer of protection against errant moisture, another layer of heat management, protects the insulation from damage, looks more cosy, and means I can more easily mount things to the walls. A slight omission so far is the floor. At the moment, the bare floorboards are a bit basic. Ideally, I want some sort of foam underlay or those interlocking foam tiles, as they'll provide a moisture barrier and provide some insulation too. But that might have to wait until I've saved some more pennies. The final step, for now, was to get a Sparky to come round and electrify the shed. And I now have 4 double plug sockets, one on each wall, which should be useful. And there are 2 big strip lights on the ceiling, which should provide more than enough light for me to see what I'm doing and take some good photos and videos. After all this comes the exciting bit, actually setting up the railway again. But that'll be for another video. In fact, given the massive amount of space I now have, I've already started planning an extension, so keep an eye out for that in a future video or several. Thanks for watching and for bearing with me while I have no trains running. If you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you'll see the next video in this series, which hopefully won't be all about sheds. And if you enjoyed this lengthy video that wasn't at all about model railways, let me know by hitting the like button. And if you have any nice things to say about my shed, leave them in the comments. Bye for now.